Welcome to the Melanin Jelly Project Conversations, a podcast that celebrates diversity and representation in children's storytelling, entertainment, and edutainment. I am the host, Olunosen Louisa Ivaze. On this podcast, I chat with authors and creators of children's books, entertainment, and edutainment. This is also a collaboration with the Ottawa Black Book Club. Okay, so welcome back. Bach is joining us from Big Island, Hawaii. Bach Ly is the author of Adventures at a Lopsided Pond, A Frog, a Princess, and a Magical Fly. Meet a frog princess unlike any before. So hi, Bach. Nice to meet you. My name is Louisa, and welcome to the Melanin Jelly Project Conversations. This is a podcast where we celebrate diversity and representation in children's storytelling. So tell us about yourself and what inspired you to write this lovely book.
Oh, aloha. So what inspired me to write this book was when I was, I believe 14, I was babysitting my younger cousin who was 5 at the time, and we had nothing in common, and the only way that she would spend any time with me is if I would tell her these stories.
Okay.
And so the whole series is based off of this extremely elaborate story that I made up to entertain my cousin.
Oh, that's so nice. That's so nice. Because I was reading through it and it read almost like the popular Princess and the Frog. So I thought, I actually thought it was a retelling of that story, The Princess and the Frog. But, you know, in that story, it was at the end, the frog turned into a prince and all of that. But in this one, it started with the frog swallowing the magic fly.
Yes.
So yeah.
Well, I found it is a retelling of The Frog Prince. I just always found it really interesting how they never gave his side of the story. How did he become a frog? How long was he a frog? These were things that were just kind of brushed over in the original, and I felt like giving his side a voice as well. Okay. I really like perception stories where you take something original, you take something everyone knows of, and you see it from a different point of view.
Okay, why do you think that is important? Because I think it's a lot of fairy tales is always a story about the princess. So this time around, you took it away from the girl story and made it almost a boy story.
Yeah, because it is really interesting that, all of these princesses seem to force marriage onto everyone. So I just wanted to be the opposite side and say, it's good to consider both point of views. And there are so many unanswered questions. I just wanted to answer them.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Because this is the first time I'm actually coming across a children's storybook that is a retelling of a fairy tale, but from the prince's point of view. Because it's always the princess's point of view. She's the one who always gets rescued, and then it automatically ends in marriage. And then they live happily ever after. But this one, they got married, and there was no happily ever after here, because the frog wanted to go back to its life. Or do I call it an it or a he?
It's a he.
Okay.
Is how I go about it.
Okay, so what was the writing process like? How long did it take you to write this story?
The writing was always the easiest part. It took me maybe a month at best to write it and edit it. The long part for me was just overcoming my resistance to publishing. So every time I got really close to publishing, I would just put it off and wait, because there was always some small detail that wasn't pleasing to me. I got really uptight about a lot of things, like the illustration and so forth, and I wrote the book in 2014.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I wrote it. I had all the illustrations done. I did everything, and I just waited on pressing the publish button until this year.
Okay. Oh, wow. That's good.
Last year.
So did you get traditionally published or you self-published?
I self-published.
Okay. So what was that process like? Why didn't you choose the traditional publishing route? Why did you opt for self-publishing?
Well, I talked to a lot of other authors. It seems as if even after you get with a traditional publisher, it's all up to you to promote your book.
Okay.
And I realized that I wanted more control over how much I made. And I felt as if I'm going to put in the work to create a quality product, I wanted to be able to get as much from it as I can. And self-publishing was really, I had already paid for all the illustrations and all the editing and all the little steps. I started an LLC publishing company.
Okay.
And I bought the ISBN. So I did all the steps, and I found that in the long run, I would make more money if I just did it myself. And if I'm gonna have to do the promoting myself, the only thing I noticed that the traditional route would offer me was just more quality services.
Okay.
So it really was, it came down to just wanting more control over the process and a higher margin for myself.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's good.
Is why I chose traditional.
And who is your illustrator?
Self-published.
Okay. And the illustrations are amazing. They look simple. It looks like simple pencil, but I know it's not as easy as it looks.
I found her on Upwork.
Oh, okay.
And she's on digitally.
Okay. Was she expensive?
Even though it looks water.
Yeah. Was she expensive? Because that's one question a lot of people ask. Some people want to know, when they are looking for illustrators, what discourages a lot of children's authors who choose to go to the self-publishing route is the cost of illustration. So they're always trying to look for affordable illustration. But for me, what I've learned is when you pay good money, you get good work. Yeah, because for me, I write books too. I tried to go the cheaper route, and trust me, you don't want to know my story. A lot of writers who choose to go the self-publishing route, one thing that discourages a lot of them is the cost of illustration. So did you spend a lot on illustration? Because from experience, I realized that when you pay good money, you get good work. And one time on two different occasions, I tried to use cheaper illustrators. And trust me, you don't want to know my story. So those books never saw the light of day, and I decided, you know what? If you want quality work,
well, I was really lucky. I was able to find her at a very reasonable price.
Okay.
When I first began the journey, I really had no idea how expensive different aspects of it was going to be. So many other authors write and talk about it. I realized that I had to steal.
No, please,
yeah, and she worked with me the entire time. Each of the illustrations, I actually drew a sketch for her to show her how I wanted the positioning, and she followed it to the T. She was really, really easy to work with.
Oh, okay, great. That's one thing that is very important. Yeah, because
I would love to work with her on continuations of the story.
Okay. Oh, great. So you said this is a series, right?
I'm sure the prices have changed.
Yeah, but even if the pricing has changed, it won't be too. Hopefully it won't be too bad. For me, I would like to look her up just to see other works she's done, and to see if the kind of illustration that I want. Yeah. So you said this book is part of a series. What's your series called, and what's the series about?
The rest of the series continues following the magic frog as he tries different dietary changes, since he can spoiler, he can no longer eat flies at the end of the story. So the rest of the series follows him as he just avoids magical flies.
Oh, okay, that's so what was your marketing process?
But he runs into other magical. In the next book, he runs into a mermaid.
Okay.
Because he takes up fishing.
Okay.
And so it kind of follows the same pattern where he runs into a magical being, and then it's just his interactions as he tries to avoid turning back into a human.
Okay, that's great. So what was your marketing process like? Because I know that a lot of self-published authors struggle with marketing their books. What are some of the processes you've put in place to market your book and to ensure that your book gets into the right hands? What are some of the things that you have done?
Well, I'm starting to see the importance of newsletters and collecting those. So I've been working on doing author swaps with other people who have bigger fan bases than me. So that has been pretty interesting and has led to more, because I'm not trying to go wide. I'm trying to go very narrow and find specifically people who like retellings of fairy tales. So that's newsletters I'm working a lot with, and also doing group promotions with other authors so that we're all sharing the bulk of promoting a special event. On February 8th and 9th, me along 10 other authors are going to do a group promotion where we all offer our book for free during that time. And that has been working out really nice. I really enjoy posting on different book review sites as well. And I'm trying podcasts. It is a new thing that I'm trying to promote and push out of my comfort zone.
Yeah,
I've been very behind the scenes. I don't.
Yeah, I think the thing about
I found that being on camera is kind of difficult, but it's coming more naturally the more often I do it.
Yeah, I think there's something about putting a face to a name or putting a face to a book. I was that kind of person. I used to like to do things behind the scenes, but I discovered that when you put yourself out there, sometimes it helps. But with podcasting, for me, my experience has been very interesting. I looked around and I thought, I don't see enough podcasts that talk to authors to diverse authors about diverse books and all of that. What are some of the challenges you think that self-published authors face when trying to promote their books?
Well, I mean, the internet is so vast right now, and there's so many options that it's like, which route is the best route for me? And it's paralyzing how many choices there are. It's like, should I just focus heavy on my website? Should I focus on speaking engagements? Like, where should I go with this massive project before me of finding the target audience, the business research that goes behind like how should I market. It's a lot to learn, and I think that's the biggest thing, is just it's a very steep learning curve, and unless you're willing to put in the time to like understand your market, understand where you've positioned yourself, I think a lot of people just get overwhelmed at that part. And so I think the biggest challenge for most self-published people is just choosing an effective approach to consistently talking about your book.
Okay. And you spoke about retelling because you said you were not trying to go too wide, you were trying to go narrow. So I believe that is just finding authors, because I have some retellings that I have written, and I actually had planned to put out 2 last year. But it's like the same situation when I was telling you I tried to go with a cheap illustrator and they messed it up. So how important, because for me, I love classics, and I feel that through the years, people have told classics and they've adapted it to different cultures. And that's the beauty of the ability to retell stories. So why do you think retelling is important? Because why did you choose to retell stories?
Well, I recently went to a workshop with Hay House Publishing, and it was very enlightening. He says that the CEO of I think his name is Reed. He says that most authors have the book before the book, which is a book in their heart that needs able to start producing more books on a regular basis. And I feel like this is my book before the book. It's something that my heart had always told me, that you should tell this story to the world. That's pretty much the main reason I chose it. I really like retelling because when I was growing up, one of my favorite books was a retelling of the three little pigs.
Oh.
And it was from the point of view of the wolf.
Okay.
And so I always really appreciated in fairy tales, it's always very one-sided. Like most fairy tales are always told from the victim side, and not very often is it told from any of the supporting characters. So I feel like changing the dynamic and focusing on the male aspect of some of the female fairy tales is important, because it lets girls see that there's 2 sides to marriage. You have to consider the men, like other people's point of view. Okay. And in my story, the princess was very forceful and ended up pretty much tricking someone who didn't understand what was happening into that situation.
Oh, okay.
And I feel like the natural consequence of doing that is that you get a very unresponsive partner who in the end will try to leave the trickery. So I felt like that's kind of an important message for young women, because they think like, oh, once I catch him, he's mine, you know? And that's not how it works. It's a partnership. And if you never consider the other side's point of view, you're left with confusion. Nope. You know, the princess actually comes back in the second book, and she tries to work it out with Frog. Okay. So it's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, because for me, for someone who has read lots of classics, I didn't expect the twist in this story. Because let me go back to page 6 and 7, where you said it was love at first sight for the princess, and with the snap of her fingers, 2 castle guards appeared and dragged the poor frog prince into the royal carriage. Off they went to the princess's castle, to to meet the king. Before he knew what was happening, the king wedded to and named the confused frog prince Bob. The kingdom welcomed their new magical prince Bob, and the princess lived happily beside her handsome husband. Yet the poor frog prince was not happy. So the king gave him a new name without his permission. Yeah, it's
yeah. Well, he can't speak.
Oh,
he can't speak. He currently doesn't even know the human language.
Oh. And then you want him to say the bath water
so
was hot compared to his refreshing pond, and the royal clothes were too heavy and tight compared to his light frog skin.
I did my best to go into a frog as much as possible, and a frog compared to a human lifestyle is so vastly different that I would assume a frog would go back. But that's just I also like some lifestyles, so
how I thought this story was gonna go was that he turned into a prince and he started to enjoy the human world. That's what I was expecting. That's what I thought would happen in this story. I didn't expect that he would want to go back to the pond. I didn't expect that. Because here where you said, longing for his home, the frog prince realized the only one who could help him was a magic fly. But he ate the only one he ever knew. Determined to return to the life he lost, the frog prince searched the whole kingdom for a fly that could speak, digging through trashy alleys and waiting beside rotten fruit. The frog prince found thousands of flies, yet none that spoke. And I thought, but you have a castle. You should be happy that you are living in that castle with the beautiful princess. But he wasn't.
It's easy to get caught up of what we think other people want.
Oh, okay.
It's easy to think like, oh, but this is a being that never had any stress in life, and now it's to live all of these rules and be around people that expects him to behave in a way that is completely unnatural to him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So even though he has a castle, he doesn't even have an idea of ownership. So a lot of the human concepts wouldn't really appeal to him if you had absolute freedom, or you had the choice of behaving in a very specific way around lots of people that go against your natural nature. It's going to end in discomfort, you know? I mean, it would have been nice if he found ways to enjoy. So the story is kind of an oath to a more simple living.
Mm-hmm.
And so it kind of rejects the idea of being materialistic in a lot of ways.
Okay.
And so it's funny because the concepts of like fame and possessions and wealth are all things that a frog wouldn't really necessarily understand.
Okay.
And so even though I know a lot of people wanted the happy ending,
yes,
I went against it just because I felt like there's ways to be happy without it always being about the relationship.
Oh, okay. I see. That makes a lot of sense. How important do you think representation and diversity is in storytelling? How important do you think that is?
Oh, I love it. I really enjoy the new genre of books that are just all about different characters and the different things that they go through. I feel like especially now that more and more families are multicultural, that it's nice to have books that would showcase both sides of their bloodline.
Okay.
And so I love seeing Asian characters in books. That always makes me really happy. Because my daughter, I'm Vietnamese,
Okay.
and my daughter is half Vietnamese, half Caucasian. So she looks like a perfect little blonde girl, and so she finds herself in things all the time, and so I would like to be able to, like, girls that look like me find themselves as well.
Yeah.
You know, it's really easy for her. It's really easy for her, but growing up, I don't recall many characters besides like Mulan.
Mulan. Yeah, because for me, growing up too, so I'm from Nigeria, and Nigeria was colonized by the British. So British literature was a staple in our education. So I grew up reading all the Enid Blytons. I read all those books. Yeah. So even with dolls, we had Barbie. Even before Barbie came, all our dolls were, Caucasian dolls, blue eyes, blonde hair, that kind of thing. So I feel that it's very important for our children to see themselves in stories. Yeah, because sometimes, when you look at the definition of beauty, for a lot of kids, a lot of children feel that it's what is the characters. Beauty are the characters they see in books that they read. So I feel that we are having more diverse books. That is amazing. Mirror stories. And apart from it being mirror stories, it's also great that children from other cultures can learn about other cultures. Yeah.
I also really enjoy stories that has nothing to do with the appearance of a character while still being a character of color. I really enjoy that as well, because then it's not like my color is my entire character. I really enjoy those as well. So I hope the trend keeps going and more.
Yeah, but
awesome.
What are some of the challenges you think diverse authors face when they tell those kind of stories? Because for me, I like to ask questions about authenticity of those stories. Sometimes when you want to get traditionally published, remember, publishing is, apart from writing that is a passion, publishing is a business. And many companies want to publish what they can sell. So how do you think that traditional publishing affects the authenticity of stories? Because you need to write you need to write what they can sell, right? So how do you think that affects the authenticity of story of multicultural storytelling? How do you think it affects it?
Well, I feel like it leaves people to using plots that aren't authentic to their own cultures. I feel like they're trying to blend both of them so much so that it's appealing to a mass audience, but it loses a lot of heart along the way. And so that is definitely one of the challenges, because I don't think there's enough like history behind the new books as the old books. So if you're comparing charts and seeing, oh, this one sold this many, then the new stories of diversity definitely don't look as strong if you were just to compare sales, because there's not that many and it's very much a new genre. But I think there's definitely a market for it.
Yeah,
more and more.
I think so too. And I'm happy that we are beginning to see those kind of stories being told. Like when you go to bookstores, you see them on bookshelves. I think that's very important. But a lot of work, we need to do more work, right? more work needs to be done to put those stories out there. Yeah. So you live in Hawaii. What is multicultural storytelling in Hawaii like? Because I know that I have never been that way, and I know that what I know about Hawaii are the stories is what I have seen in the movies. I know it's a holiday destination, but like the stories, the authentic stories of the Hawaiians, what is it like? What is storytelling like in Hawaii? Like your books, how do you promote your books in Hawaii?
Well, so I grew up on Oahu, which is the central island. That's where Honolulu is located. I moved there when I was 1, and I spent my entire life on Oahu. And so Oahu is really interesting because it's like 70% of the population is a mix of some form of Asian.
Oh, okay.
And then you have 10% Caucasian. Okay. And then you have 12% Hawaiian.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then the rest of the 8% is just different cultures. And so Hawaii is very, very much Asian. Ooh. Just because so much history in Hawaii. It's amazing. And growing up in the school system, you learn a lot of it. But the main reason that Hawaii is so Asian is because during a period of plantain, they were doing sugarcane and pineapple out in Hawaii. There wasn't enough Hawaiians to work at them. So the owners brought in Chinese and Japanese immigrants to make and so that saw a huge flood of these Asian cultures come to Hawaii, and they got more established. So, and the Hawaiians just got smaller and smaller. And so multicultural storytelling in Hawaii is very interesting because there's so many voices. Okay. You can literally find like any Asian that you want. You can find them here. And as we grow up in Hawaii, we get all these Hawaiian influences. So you have like Hawaiian stories with Asian flair very often.
That's interesting. Never thought of that. I never thought of that.
And so it's a wonderful place to grow up in because no matter what skin tone, it really like everyone just assumes that you're mixed with everyone else because there's the only ones that actually stand out here are Caucasians.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's just so few of them. Yeah.
So what is it like promoting children's books where you live?
Children's book where I live, if it's not based off of the beach, it's kind of difficult. Because everyone wants the beach story. Like that's what dominates Hawaiian local children's books is
what do you mean by beach stories? What do you mean by beach stories?
Like I have a shelf of children's books that are all from Hawaii, and 4 out of 5 is about going to the beach and interacting with the ocean.
Oh, I see. Okay, I see. Okay.
So every children's book that comes out of Hawaii is based around the ocean. So that's kind of the niche that Hawaii books are in. But I didn't do that. So so it's a little more difficult to promote myself as a local author. But because I don't fit the idea. Like, I don't have any Hawaiian words in my book,
Okay.
and I don't have any Hawaiian characters, and I'm not talking about the ocean. So just those three things make most people consider my book not local. So it's been challenging, but the local newspaper has been very nice, and the local magazines have been really interested. But getting to work with other local authors have been not as easy, just because I don't match the format of other local books.
Oh, I see. Because that was that was the next question I was going to ask you. If you've had any collaborations with any local authors in your area, and how and the steps you people have taken to put your books out there. So it means that so it means we've come back to social media and the internet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's really fun, but there's only pretty much one major publishing company that is based in Hawaii.
Okay.
And so because there's only one, they have very specific ideas on what they accept.
Okay.
So but they do quality work, and I was really interested in going with them. But oh well. I'm learning so much more now, you know. I'm learning so much more.
Yeah. Publishing opens your eyes to a lot of things, because for me, I mainly write for adults. I only started writing for children 2 years ago, and I was amazed at all the challenges I faced. I just thought that I would write a story, send it off to a publisher, and the publisher would be excited to reach out to me to say, we want to publish your book. But I realized that it's a whole different ballgame. A lot to look into it, down to your style of writing, your tone, your word count, the kind of story you're telling. A lot of things goes into writing children's books. That's what I just realized. So what do you hope to see for your books and other authors in Hawaii? Like people who tell children's storytellers in Hawaii, what do you hope for the future? What do you hope to see in the coming few years? What do you hope to see?
Well, I would really like to see just more Hawaiian and more local authors talking about Hawaii in different lights. It seems it seems as if a lot of people just talk about Hawaii, but not so much living in Hawaii, the essence of being here, the essence of the mixing of cultures. There's a lot of little really unique stories that you can only find here, and I feel like local authors could do more about living here and less about here. You know what I mean? Like, instead of focusing all of your energy into just describing the place, let your stories tell what it's like being here.
But
But
I don't blame people for describing the place, because from the pictures I've seen, it's a beautiful place. There's the blue skies, the water, and then the dance,
Oh, not a lot of people tell you this, but the food in Hawaii is amazing.
Oh, really?
Yes, the food is one of the best parts of Hawaii. The beauty is it's overwhelming a lot of times, even like in the worst neighborhoods. Like, you can go to like an ugly neighborhood in Hawaii and it still be an extremely beautiful place, because there's all these tropical trees growing everywhere, all these beautiful flowers. So even in like cement areas that aren't that pretty, nature finds a way to make it pretty. So yeah, Hawaii is interesting like that. But the food, if you come to Hawaii, the food is what gets you addicted.
Oh,
because the mixings of all the cultures have produced such amazing fusions that like you don't find this kind of food anywhere.
oh, okay. Oh, nice. Wow, that's so beautiful. So I just want to say a big thank you, Bach, for making our time to join us on the Learning Jali Project Conversations. And like I said in the beginning, this podcast is to celebrate representation and diversity in children's storytelling. And please tell us what's your Instagram social media handle so people can follow you and buy your books too.
I'm on Instagram. I'm Poetry for Moms.
Poetry for Moms?
Yes.
Okay.
On Instagram. And then on TikTok, I'm also Poetry for Moms.
Okay. All right. So follow her at Poetry for Moms. Okay.